In the cube, Emilie sits with her head in her hands, face swollen from tears. She hears the cube doors open and looks over to see Quake and Simmons. "You shouldn't be here," informs Emilie. "Let me guess. Coulson isn't aware you're here." Quake and Simmons look at each other. "No, he doesn't," admits Simmons. "We're here because we want to be," says Quake. "Must be nice to have that choice," fires Emilie. "What you're going through, I'm not going to pretend it's normal, but it's not wrong," says Quake. Quake and Simmons sit next to her on the bed. Emilie takes a deep breath. "I was in a really dark place the night I met Robbie. I had come to the conclusion that I could never have a normal life. There was a guy pointing a gun at me, and I wanted him to pull the trigger." Quake takes Emilie's hand. "I don't know. Maybe it was divine intervention. Maybe it was just luck. But I woke up the next day and I didn't feel alone." "You're not alone. There are thousands of us out there, and a lot of them feel the same way you do. You're scared. I know because I was scared too. I didn't know how to control my powers. And you have a whole new set you didn't even know existed. I promise, we will do everything we can to help get you through this," says Quake. "I think what you really need is a pick-me-up," says Simmons, as she walks back over to the door and rolls in a small cart. "What's that?" asks Emilie. Simmons pulls off a cover and reveals a projector, drinks, and snacks. Emilie looks at her and Quake. "Don't tell me you've never had a girls' night," asks Simmons. Emilie shakes her head. Simmons hooks up the projector and sets up a movie. The girls sit down on the bed next to Emilie with popcorn. "When Fitz makes me want to strangle him, or I just need to unwind from a rough week, I turn on a movie and stuff my face with junk," states Simmons. "I don't need an excuse to down junk food," adds Quake. Emilie cracks a smile and grabs a handful of popcorn. At the summit, the director wants to know exactly what Coulson and his team are doing about the watchdogs. "They've been awfully quiet the last 48 hours, says Director Mason. "I wish I could tell you it's because we wiped them out, but unfortunately, that's not the case," Coulson declares. "Do we know what the writing on the rock is? Or what this Gideon guy wants?" "We have Fitzsimmons translating it as we speak," bluffs Coulson. "I'll be sure to let you know once we know the full translation. As for Gideon, it's unclear what he's after." "What about this Nephilim?" inquires the director. "She's just as clueless as we are." The director searches Coulson's face for lies and then bids them goodbye as he is pulled off to a press conference. "Fitzsimmons has no clue on the origin of that script," says May, calling Coulson's bluff. "I told him what he needed to hear to keep him off our back." May gives him a side eye, and they head back to the jet. When they get back to HQ, it's late. Fitz catches Coulson walking down the hall. "I think I may have something, but, what is it? Spit it out." "Okay, I may have something, but it's archived. So get Simmons to clear it for you." "Yeah, well, Simmons doesn't have clearance for the Vatican." "What?" he says. "Yeah, so in the Vatican, they have pages of scriptures that were removed from the Bible because they didn't fit with the times, and the church believed it could do more harm than good, so they kept them locked away." "The Vatican?" repeats Coulson. "Yes, Coulson, listen to me. I couldn't get any linguistics on those markings, but I did find several images of the Vatican artifacts containing similar markings." "Looks like we're breaking into the Vatican," declares Coulson. "Where's Simmons?" "I don't know. Now that I think about it, I haven't seen her for a while." Coulson pulls up security footage to see if he can find Simmons. When he can't find her or Quake on any of the cams, he checks the feed from the containment cube. Both are passed out on the bed with Emilie surrounded by junk food. "This is why I don't have kids," Coulson states, He walks down to the holding and opens the cube. "Sleepover is over," he says as he walks in. The girls all wake, startled by his entrance. He looks over them like a disappointed father. "I'm gone a couple of hours and the rules go right out the window," he scolds. "It was my idea. I'm sorry," admits Simmons. "She's not completely to blame," adds Quake. "I want you two out. Now," orders Coulson. Simmons and Quake grab the refreshments and wheel out the projector. "They were just trying to help," says Emilie remorsefully. "I'm sorry for earlier." He stands in the doorway, waiting to hear her out. "My life is changing quicker than I can adjust," she reveals. "You guys have been so nice and welcoming. I said it before and I'll say it again. I can't imagine what you're going through right now, physically or emotionally. If I was in your shoes, I can't say I'd behave much more differently. But you need to understand we are not your enemies. And we're not just a team of super cool government officials. We are a family, and we care deeply for each other. I know that family for you is not the easiest thing to inject yourself into, but I hope that one day that's what we become for you." He walks out of the cube, leaving the door open. "Aren't you going to lock me in?" asks Emilie. "Do I need to?" Coulson replies as he walks down the hall. Emilie steps out of the cube and heads to her room. Agents try not to stare as she walks down the hall, but she can feel their eyes. She gets to her room and immediately falls asleep. The next morning, Coulson calls the team into his office. "As you all know, we aren't exactly getting a green light on this, and the Vatican isn't going to just let SHIELD agents walk in and take photos of hidden religious text. Fitzsimmons, you will pose as religious scholars. You will be granted access by the church to view these texts." "Are they really giving us access?" asked Simmons. "Of course not. We're going to get you set up with badges granting you access through their entry points. Once in, Fitz will take photos of any text he thinks will be useful." Fitz pulls out a pair of glasses and puts them on. The lenses are fully functioning camera capable of taking photos, video, heat, and structural scans, and uploading it straight to our computer systems. "Me and May will be on standby outside in the event something should go down," says Coulson. They take one of the smaller jets to the Vatican, leaving Emilie, Mac, Quake, and Robbie behind at HQ. Emilie decides to blow off some leftover emotions and head over to the sparring room to hit the bags. "Can we talk?" Robbie asks after finding her. She looks at him with a blank expression and sits down in a chair to take off her gloves. "I need you to understand why I reacted the way I did." "So you came to justify being an asshole?" She scoffs. "Emilie, do you know how much that hurt?" She looks at him intensely. "We never officiated ourselves as a couple, but there was more to us. There was something there that you denied even existed. I walked away hurt because I thought you let me in, and instead you threw me out." "I'm scared," he reveals. "I'm scared, okay? I don't want to hurt you. Robbie, you cannot shield me from the world because you're scared of what may happen to me. It's not the world I'm trying to shield you from. It's me." She looks at him, his eyes burning as he struggles with the writer. He feels a need. I see everything when he's in control. I don't want to see him hurt you." He starts to shake and she grabs his hand. "Robbie, you control him. He doesn't control you. Without you, he has no power." "I can't," he says. He grips her wrist and transforms into the writer. Emilie pulls back, but he doesn't let go. He grabs her by the neck and slams her against the wall. "Robbie," she gasps. "Robbie, fight him." The writer grip tightens around her neck as she struggles to breathe. The fire alarm goes off, and with all her strength, Emilie places her hand on his chest and delivers a fiery burst, knocking the writer back. He gets up and staggers back and forth. Everyone comes running to the room as Robbie struggles to transform back into himself. He pushes his way through the agents and makes his way down the hall. Emilie takes a moment to catch her breath before heading towards the shower, avoiding everyone. Mac tracks down Robbie, heading to his car. Sure have been putting a lot of miles on that thing. Robbie stops in his tracks. I'm out. What, you just gonna leave? What about Emilie? Asks Mac. That's why I have to leave. I'm not so sure that's the right thing. It's the best thing, interrupts Robbie. I lose control when I'm around her. That's what love does. It makes you crazy, says Mac. Yeah, well, most people who are crazy in love don't turn into a fiery demon and try to kill them, he points out. What does she mean to you? Asks Mac. You, Robbie, not the writer. Robbie takes a second to think. More than I can put into words? He tries to describe it. I've been hiding in the shadows ever since the accident. Scared someone might discover what I am. She still got in the car, he says, remembering what she said the night they snuck out. Why would you let him come between that? Questions Mac. If you care for her as much as I think you do, you would let him know who's in charge. Robbie gets in the Charger and takes off. Later that evening, Quake and Mac get a call from the away team. They got the information they were looking for, but they will have to decipher some of the text using their computer systems. How's everything going over there? Asks Coulson. Fine, says Quake and Mac simultaneously. Good, says Coulson, not believing them for a minute. We'll be back within the hour. After her shower, Emilie sits in her bedroom listening to music in her earbuds while staring at the ceiling. She notices the lights start to flicker. She gets up and steps out of her room. Old building, says one of the agents walking by. She walks back to the room and hears a strange sound, almost like a whisper. She pauses to listen before deciding it's nothing and puts her earbuds back in. She lays on the bed and closes her eyes, feeling someone gaze at her. She opens her eyes and jumps when she sees the man in the suit from the mill. Sorry to wake you, he says. I'm afraid it's time for you to come with me. The alarms start going off in HQ, signaling a breach. I don't think so, says Emilie. She blasts a shockwave at him, but Gideon shifts, almost like a ghost, out of the way, leaving a clear path to the door. She makes a run for it and sees S.H.I.E.L.D. completely in chaos. There are S.H.I.E.L.D. agents running in all directions. She takes off down the hall and sees an angel with wings hurling one of the agents into the ceiling. She runs the opposite direction down a corridor and sees Gideon again. You cannot hide, he says, walking towards her. She runs back the way she came and turns down a hall towards the lab. She sees Mac with his shotgun, and he yells for her to get down. He pulls the trigger and hits one of the angels, who blocks most of the impact with his wings. Get out of here! Go! He hands her his badge. Emilie takes off running again, not sure where to go. She counts 4 angels other than Gideon on her way to an exit. She gets to one of the access doors and scans Mac's ID. The door opens and she finds Gideon there waiting. She tries to run, but he grabs her arm and places a cuff on it. That's enough cat and mouse, he says. Let her go, says Robbie as he walks down the corridor. That's cute, but the whole knight in shining armor thing is a little outdated, says Gideon. Robbie transforms into the rider and races towards them. Interesting, says Gideon. He produces a pair of wings, and before Robbie can reach them, wraps them around Emilie, and they teleport out of the facility. Quake and Matt come running down the hall just as they receive a call from Coulson and May. What's going on? I just received a signal saying there's been a breach, he asks. We were just attacked, acknowledges Quake. Is everyone okay? Inquires May. They took Emilie, says Robbie in distress.